I'm Angela Metler. I'm an administrative assistant in the president's office at South Dakota Mines, and I would like to welcome everybody to tonight's STEAM Cafe. We've been doing STEAM Cafe since April of 2018. It's a partnership with South Dakota Mines, Hay Camp, and South Dakota Public Broadcasting. Couldn't do it without them, can't do it without you. Thank you all for coming once again. I'm not going to take up a lot of time. I will turn it right over to Jason Copes.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate everybody coming. I know we've got a handful of folks that are online or will be showing up online. One thing that I've asked Angela to do is just to kind of poll who's out there so I kind of know the audience. I'm going to cover a topic on an organization that's brand new. So there is not an existing model to compare it to, which means it's a little bit difficult to explain. It also means that there's a bunch of different directions I can go depending on who's interested in what. So I will ask at some point in time, probably for audience participation, to make sure that I'm answering questions that are interesting to you. So my intent today is to talk a little bit about the National Security Innovation Network, NSIN. It is a DoD program office. I'm a contractor that works for the Department of Defense to support this program. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about that, and then I'm going to tell you about the collaboration agreement that the School of Mines and NSIN had that brought me here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about kind of the year that we've done this past year and kind of the successes, so you have an example of what we're doing, because there isn't just a one stamp, and it's affecting so many things that are actually interrelated inside the community. The other thing that I am going to caveat is there's no possible way that I can actually call out all the people that have been so instrumental in making this happen. So there's going to be about 2 or 3 people that I kind of focus in on as being kind of core folks that have helped kind of move this forward. And then the other thing is there's going to be some instances where I may talk about some other university activities. And I use that just as an example of what can be. So I came in here last year at the kind of right at the peak of COVID. And so there's some opportunities that we just didn't have a chance to do inside the School of Mines that other universities have and have worked with the base, that I expect to see similar results next year. So when I'm using examples that may be from different universities, it's purely just because, you know, timing wise, I got here kind of after some of the planning cycle in the academic year. So those are kind of the caveats here to begin with. So the NSIN is, I already kind of covered, it's a DoD office, and program office basically means that it has direct funding to do what it's supposed to do. Oftentimes what you'll see is organizations that are funded through subordinate echelons of organizations. We're actually directly funded. We fall underneath research and engineering. The way that the department is divided is you have the really kind of the civilian side, but the Office of the Secretary of Defense is the civilian leadership over the Army, Air Force, Navy, Marine Corps, and Space Force. And then there's also kind of a Defense Department segment that's civilian led, and it does a lot of the research and engineering, and that's the echelon that I support. Prior to this job, I was the chief of staff at the headquarters, and then had the opportunity to come out to South Dakota. And then prior to being part of ENSIGN, I served in the Air Force for about 25 years. And so I've been stationed up here a couple different times. I've actually been a South Dakota resident since 1997. And now I don't have to move anymore, so I get to have permanent roots out here. The model that we have with ENSIGN, and what's kind of unique about it, is it's really trying to get after the problem of how do we actually tap into all of this incredible talent pool that we have inside of universities that include researchers and students. There's lots of talk about the talent and the potential, but there's no capability and there's no model to actually connect with that and pull it out and actually do something with it. We have lots of engagement that I think touches on kind of the periphery, but there's still a lot that's left on the table. So ENSIGN's approach was, why don't we go ahead and start with a DoD problem? And when I say DoD, you can think Ellsworth, you can think Navy Surface Warfare Center, Crane, you can think, you know, any agency that you want to think of that falls in the Department of Defense. But we want to take a problem because that's a converging event. And then we actually want to find problem solvers that are looking to solve that problem. It may sound very, very simple, but to try to get an actual framed problem, I think anybody who's tried to do research understands how challenging that can be. So one of our challenges is working with the department to make sure that we've got tangible and frameable problems. And then the next one is actually getting the right talent pools. And you have to have an event that has some sort of some sort of structure to it to make sure you have outcomes. And we call those programs. So problem, programs, and then what we call unconventional, problem solvers or non-conventional, which is the universities. And then we talk about the venture community. And ideally what we would like is after you have a problem that's solved, the only way you're going to scale that is there has to be some sort of dual use capability. It has to have a commercial application as well as a military application. Otherwise, the solution just ends up sitting on a shelf. And so that's kind of the components of ENSIGN. But everything starts out with a DoD problem. Our headquarters is located up in Crystal City in Virginia. So if you hear me say NCR, National Capital Region, or DC, I'm referring to kind of all the same area. It's all fairly densely located. We're about 2 metro stops from the Pentagon, so interacting there quite often. We have 11 regional offices. So the FEMA regions, we have regional directors that are basically spaced there. The only difference is in California, we divided it since it's so big. And then we also have 17 university program directors. I'm one of those. So we have 17 people like me that are located at universities, and I'll cover that here in a map. One thing that's very, very unique that I really want to highlight with the School of Mines and actually this area is we are 4 times smaller than the smallest university that's inside of ENSIGN. So we have all the way from, the School of Mines, which we sit around 2,400 students or so, to Arizona State, which I think is upwards of like 40,000. But we have one of the smaller ones. One thing that I'll show you is the impact that we're having is way, way outside the weight of actually the size and the size of the community and the size of the school with the School of Mines, which I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. If you look at our research efforts, it's the same way. So really a lot of great stuff going on. So the next slide here, apologize, is unfortunately my poor mapping technology here, but I want to provide a visualization. And one of the things that I really want to point out is we're in what has been termed, I think in the papers and stuff, and I know in some like East and West Coast as flyover states. And if you look, there's actually not a whole lot normally as far as labs or whatever. We're one of about 2 or 3 universities that are actually here. And I think that's really, really important because what you'll see is some of the interactions that the base has had is throughout the United States because of the relationship that we have here. I also want to emphasize that when I'm talking about the successes and what the base has done with ENSIGN, the only way that would happen would be by having the relationship that I have with the school. So some of this may not directly be talking about the school, but I could not accomplish what has happened with ENSIGN without having the support of the school. So all of this is really, really tied together. The check marks of the regional offices that I was talking about and the stars are the universities. This right here, I just put it down for a list. If I tell you 17 universities, I don't think that that's nearly as like impressive as actually kind of seeing a list or whatever, but you can see we have a whole range of universities there. The other one that I'll point out, I have not gone back and fact checked this for a while, but to my knowledge, I think we are the only that is predominantly undergrads, where most of the other schools have a really, really high population of graduate students. So that's something else that's very, very unique with the school. And when you look at the results that we're having, again, we're really out-punching our weight. What I wanted to cover in here is just kind of a where we've been and why this is important. So about a year ago, Joseph Wright and President Rankin worked with ENSIGN and basically set up an agreement that they were going to go ahead and host a body of me here and bring me into research affairs and collaborate and partner with the school. I did a little bit of research, and prior to having this relationship, as far as the School of Mines, what we've done for Ellsworth specifically, there's only really 2 documented things. We produced some sunshades for the base, for the B1s, and then also we have VRC. We've taken and done a lot with additive manufacturing. What I'm not talking about is the research area. The research area is something where, again, way outside the weight of the school as far as punching and stuff like that and engagements with a lot of labs throughout the United States, but for the base directly. And the reason why I want to highlight that is because in 14 months' time, we've had 8 different problem-solving activities that have led to things that are not just small accomplishments with the base. One or 2 of them have led to phase 1 SBIR letters of support, which are on their way to being approved and leading to funding for startups. One of those, I guess VRC probably technically isn't a startup at this point in time, but we had a class with our Innovating for National Security that actually tackled a problem that nobody on the base has been able to solve, which is the concrete spalling that occurs underneath the auxiliary power units of the B-1. So a lot of heat combined with chemicals onto the concrete. Basically, the concrete was lasting about maybe 4 to 5 years instead of 20 years it's supposed to. Well, student team actually went and figured out what the problem was. Everybody thought it was a heat problem, and actually it was the chemicals that were getting saturated, and then the heat on top of that compounded it. So that from there, they came up with about 3 or 4 recommendations of next steps, one of which VRC took and actually continued to do some additional research on. And looks like they're going to be pursuing that to actually implement a solution out at the base. I put a couple others up there. Again, these I don't know as far as perspective or whatever from somebody looking at them, but they're really large problems that the base doesn't make a lot of progress or hasn't made a lot of progress on. And the amount of progress they've made in like anywhere from a semester or 90 days, depending on the program, is amazing. One of our teams right now, we have a group of 2 school mines fellows and I think a student from Penn State that's working on energy resilience. None of them have a background in energy resilience. And they've done some amazing things of presenting to the leadership on the base to help them with decisional tools when they're looking at long-term planning of how do they reduce the dependency of having local power so they can be able to sustain themselves for 30 days without needing any kind of external power. Really, really, really big problem when you have the old infrastructure they have, and they have a lot of planning going on with the B-21. And so the student team is going out and has really dug into a lot of information to help them understand and make better decisions. And oh, by the way, it's helped other local folks engage better with the base to go, okay, this is how we connect into the problem you have and helping to solve the problem. Some of the other things that's happened is we've also had engagement with the Joint Personnel Recovery Agency. So this is an agency that's out of Virginia. And we had one of our teams worked on basically helping to identify quicker and faster features that have a tendency to time out on maps. So as quickly as we're changing the surface of the Earth for various reasons, what they were running into is they weren't able to give valid maps to people that may have to be able to evade or go out and survive on their own for a couple days or weeks or a month at a time. Things as simple as water, where people are, where you could be picked up or whatever. And so the team went out and actually worked with some of our GIS experts and helped present not only what's possible, but also some steps that the Joint Personnel Recovery Agency took that. And then they took that into another program and have continued on as far as developing some of those. But again, the thought process and a lot of the hard work of identifying the problem and then coming up with ways forward is coming out of our student teams. The other ones on here that I've got is we've actually pulled in some of the labs for the Hirethons or for the different job fairs. So what we've been doing is trying to bring in different hiring authorities that have direct hire authority, which what that means is they can make a decision and bring somebody on board within probably a month or so instead of having a much longer process, especially with STEM graduates. It's an authority that Congress passed, I think, a couple years ago. And some of our labs have that. And so what we've been doing is bringing that in and working with our students. And I think what it's also done is, unfortunately, most of these labs aren't located here, but it's given them some visibility on some other opportunities of ways that they might be able to serve and some things they might be interested in after they graduate. One of the secrets, or I guess the secret in here is actually threefold. I said I was going to mention a couple names. I put Joseph's name in there and Jeff's because they're completely bought in on trying to help with the success on here. John, I know you're in the back. You're another one that's been kind of key to this as far as popping up and helping. But none of this can happen with just a good idea. It actually has to have the buy-in, and the concept and the idea is totally new. And so it's the openness of folks to being willing to try something new and be flexible. And we've had bumps along the ways, but with this team, we've been able to adjust to make sure we keep things on track. The other thing is we always start with a problem. I know that sounds really basic, but folks normally come with a solution and then they try to find the interest in everything. And that's really, really challenging. But when you start with a problem and then you make sure that that's the problem and then you keep on focusing back to that, you're working towards the convergence. And also you can make sure that not only the problem solver, but also the person who has the problem are going to be able to celebrate success together, instead of arriving at the end and the problem solver declares victory and the person with the problem still has a problem. And that happens way too much. And I know it's really, really simple, but it's just such a magical thing when you start with the problem. But it's really, really difficult to actually get that framed up. And then the other one is we execute ENSIGN programs as a team effort. And what I mean by this is it's very, very common to see folks that'll do more of consulting work, which is, hey, here's my problem, go do a study and then come back and give me a report. This is we're working and we're showing up on these different touch points, and it isn't a check-in, it's actually an engagement back and forth. And what that does is that makes sure that the subject matter experts or the DoD entities are actually working with the folks. There's access to them. You have the access to the person that has the problem. So, you can sit there and work and design and try to fix things all day long. But if you're not getting the feedback and you're not doing this as a team, once again, at the end, when you're done, you realize you're actually at two different locations. So doing this as a group effort is really, really paying off. One of the key components, and I don't have her name up here, is Lori Vega on that at the base. She's the one that's in charge of a lot of the innovation efforts that's going on at the base. But she is really, really helpful on helping to help with the really busy schedules to make sure that we get the right people, so that even if they've got a busy schedule, we can have somebody else that can fall in, that can provide the expertise to make sure that we're pursuing a solution that's going to answer not only their needs, but also allow a student team to be successful. Okay, I know this may be an eye chart. And it's normally a handout, and I've developed this because when General Weatherington from 8th Air Force came out to the base, he wanted to ask, or he wanted to know what ENSIGN has been doing or what Ellsworth has been doing with ENSIGN. And one of his questions out of there, once he got done with his briefing, was, how are you guys doing this at the School of Mines? What did you do? And it's the secret that I told you there, the threefold part. Is we got problems, we've got people that are bought in, that are really working as a team, and then we run these as an actual team on all these programs. And when I say program, we call a program like we have a fellowship in the summer. We use the senior design capstones. We make sure that we've got connections on good frame problems and then ways to continue on after a capstone. We call that a program. We have the Innovating for National Security. We call that a program. All of them are structured events that have planned and consistent inputs and expected outcomes as they go through. So when I say a program, that's what I mean. So anyway, he came in and I built this to try to capture what I thought was important, which is this is what's been going on. And oh, by the way, when you talk about the talent pool, when I was talking about being one of the flyover states, this shows that it doesn't really matter. I mean, we've tapped into not only the talent locally, but we're able to tap into talent that's on the coast. And oh, by the way, we're able to actually take School of Mines talent and connect it to the coast. Again, right now when I'm talking School of Mines, I'm talking generally the students. My strategy has been focusing on that and then working out towards the researchers down the road. So that is a plan of mine that I plan on doing, but that involves more labs, and also it's already fairly well established. So most of this is student related. So what I have up on here is I've got what the problem sets were. They can range anything from blowing trash, and I'll show you actually one of the things that was developed for that it's now patented by San Diego State. It is a 3D printed, they call it Gust, that stays on the trash can until you flip it upside down, kick it over and roll it over. It doesn't come undone. It's real simple. And I wish that the student team wanted to take that and turn it into a business, but they weren't interested. And it's a complete product. It's probably like one of the exemplary cases that I would want to use. But I use it because it was a problem that a lot of folks weren't very interested in. And we had this one team that's like, that'd be perfect for our mechanical engineers. And they ran with it, and they ended up with a great product at the end that not only is Ellsworth implementing, but Grand Forks is looking to actually work with the school to be able to get the product and actually be able to use it on their trash cans also. So again, things that don't seem like they're very interesting or whatever, sometimes they end up being some of the best solutions. I just got notified today on a data analyst or a data analytics problem. The base was asking for computer programs. or programmers. And when I looked at their problem, it was actually an analysis of the data they have. They already had the database, they had the structure. It was being able to get it in a format they could visualize and reduce human error. And so we worked on framing it up. We learned about this actually from Innovating for National Security, which was taught last fall, of understanding what their problem was. And by the end of the course, we realized the problem was actually not a programming problem. It was a data analysis problem. So anyway, we took and we focused on that. And so we looked at some of the functions that Excel has. So Excel has Power Query and Power Pivot, which is a fairly new function to it. And the reason why I provide that background is because I think that there's a lot to be had here. These students came from, one was from Berkeley, one I think was from A&M, and another one was from George Mason in Virginia. All of them had data analytics background and they had programming background, and none of them were aware of this tool. They learned it. The reason why they focused on it is because the base could implement it immediately. And they just got it working with about a month left in the program. And I just got informed literally before I showed up, the base went back and tested their product against what they've done on reports for the past 5 months. And they identified 26%, they had a 26% error on the data that when they compared this tool to, because it took out all the human interface and automated a lot of it, it got rid of that error. It also took something that took 6 people an entire week to produce a report. It now takes one person 30 minutes. And so it's things like that that are exciting, that they're really, really basic, but there's a lot of different tools out there and folks just don't know how to combine those. And those are the things that our students can do. And sometimes the students aren't even aware of the tools that are out there. Okay, a couple of the other ones. I didn't know exactly who all was going to be in the audience, so some of the other things I wanted to cover is efforts of focusing with Ellsworth on their problems. When I got here last year, it took about a month and a half to come up with one problem. We were worried about getting 2 problems into Innovating for National Security to be taught in the industrial engineering department. We're up to, I think I've got like a list of like 30 or 35 problems. And what's been amazing is as we're doing this, folks are starting to walk around thinking more about what is the problem and how do I frame it up? And what that's led to is actually 3 different small business innovation research, phase 1 letters of support, and then 2 phase 2 MOUs. Now the MOUs are a requirement for a phase 2. The LOSs help tremendously on the phase 1. Those are all in different phases right now. But the reason why I share that with you is because the base knows how to utilize that tool. The base is looking out at trying to, those energy problems I was talking about and some of those others, as they're starting to understand their problem better, now they're looking for solutions. And this is one of the ways that they can help to make sure that small businesses that can help tackle their problem are able to move forward with their research. So that's an area where we definitely can connect in. Out of this, I think a handful, I think half of them are local. There's a couple of them that I don't know where the companies are. I just learned about it. Another one is with Navy Surface Warfare Center. I know that we do research with, I think, the Navy Underseas Warfare Center, I think, up in Washington State. I think we have Indian Head coming out next week. Crane is another one. It's out of Indiana. We just connected with them, HS Precision, which is a small arms company that's just off of 16, as you're going down, I think it used to be Elkvale Drive or whatever. And the reason why I bring this up is because HS wasn't aware of having the ability to go in, and Crane had IP that they couldn't commercialize. And so as long as they don't want exclusive rights, Crane is actually not only wanting them to commercialize it, they're possibly wanting to follow up with a contract. And they're working and connecting HS with a tech link out of Montana to assist them with helping to commercialize. So HS is like, oh my gosh, really, this exists? They've also opened up a couple things where HS pitched, and they had a larger company engage with them that I think is also going to lead to some business for them. And the reason why I bring this up is Crane had no idea of HS and the capability that HS had. And so what that started is it started a dialogue of talking about the other companies that we have that are locally, that are small tech companies that have some extreme capabilities that I think people oftentimes aren't aware of. And so I'm working with Crane, and you'll see that I'm planning a reverse pitch event, and we'll have the tech transfer office come out here. And kind of the intent is to try to get them familiar with what we have out here as far as tech talent, capability, and eventually get to their engineers. So the T2 office is obviously a little bit different than their engineers, but establish like this personal relationship. So when I pick up the phone, I can go, "Hey, Annie, this is Jason," instead of picking up and emailing somebody and going, "Hey, John, you'd never heard of me, but my name's Jason Combs from Ensign." And so that's the kind of thing that I'm trying to do as far as actually this collaboration. So when Crane is looking for some sort of tech, they're like, "Hey, you know what? The Black Hills has Respect, it has RPM, it has HS, it has B9 Creations, it has MemSense, it has all of these different or small business tech companies that actually have some amazing capability that most people aren't aware of." So those are things I would actually throw that out also as an ask and help from you guys of help me identify those better. Because when Crane does come out here in October, I want to make sure that they're engaging with folks that they're like, "Oh my gosh, I want to work with you more. I want to learn more about this." So what I threw up here is, what's planned for the next academic year. This is just the planning part. I'll tell you that I expect that we probably will do anywhere from like 25 to 35% more than this, because each of this is a building block. Each one of these builds more opportunities to collaborate more. And I'm open for any ideas that you all see as far as collaboration ideas. So whether you're a student, whether you're a researcher, whether you're department head, whether you're a startup company, whether you're a small tech company or whatever, if it's something that's hinged around solving a DoD problem, I've got a lot of flexibility of how do we figure out the programming and how to make those interactions go. And if I don't know how to do it, let's figure it out. Let's write it down. And everything out here has been people doing a lot of whiteboarding, figuring out how to move forward. So the upcoming semester, what we have planned is we're actually going to scale out Innovating for National Security. The NSIN name for it is Hacking for Defense. It's based upon the I-Core Lean Launchpad or startup. The difference is the I-Core program is I have a product, I'm looking for a market. The Hacking for Defense, same person developed it as I have a problem. I'm trying to make sure that that's the problem and identifying that problem. So what is my problem? What's the actual problem? And then going out and trying to build a business from there. We're also doing 2 capstones initially. I'll tell you, this is one where Jeff Wolstad is going to run with the first capstone, and he's like, "Hey, we can do more." I was the one that said, "Hey, let's go ahead and let's wait. Let's go ahead and do 2 and see what we learn from that and figure out how do we scale this into some of the other departments and make a decision if we want to do a second capstone of one of the ones that starts in the spring with industrial engineering." So again, this is the kind of partnership that I'm talking where I'm having to go, "Hey, whoa, let's hold up on this." And part of this is going with kind of the iterative process of let's build a skateboard. Let's build something that's fully functional. It doesn't have to be perfect, but the output is actually value in and of itself. And then we'll make a scooter the next year. And then we'll keep on building, and we just keep on adding people as we go through that so that we don't have 5 or 10 people maybe getting kind of a neutral experience. Let's go with 2. Let's really focus on that. And then if we have hiccups, we can actually correct it on the fly and then make sure that we implement that in the next iteration of programming. And then I've got the X-Force fellowship teams. I know I just said we're in the middle of those fellowships, but I will tell you that all of the big companies compete for our students starting in like the November and December timeframe. So what that means, what that means for me at Ensign is basically I need to make sure that I get problems that are framed from the base in the November timeframe. And then I need help on starting to identify students that are interested. Again, a lot of help from the school and we have 4 fellows from the school that are working. I bet we're going to probably have around 15 to 20 next year. But nobody knew what the program was or anything like that. With Matt, Joseph, John, and a bunch of other folks getting this out to the students, I had people come in and asking, and all of them are having a great experience, and all their backgrounds and all their experiences are very different on what they're working on at the base. The big event that I talked about a little bit here is this reverse pitch. And this was kind of a concept that Joseph and I came up with, which is how can we get Department of Defense customers or entities out here to tell you what their problems are and actually have them somewhat framed up instead of just talking generally about what the problems are. And so what we're looking to do is actually dedicate an entire day during the event, the Innovation Expo in the Black Hills. So I think on the 14th, I think is the expo, and then the 15th, I think is the school's actual T2 meeting. So on the 13th, we're going to have the mission support group come out and talk about their problems. We're going to have Grand Forks also come out. And then we'll have a break in there, and then we'll have the Crane tech transfer. Division between those, because I do see those as very different entities. You have base level, which are different than the labs. The labs in general, I think, is going to be more where our researchers and our small tech companies are going to be interested. And then the base is going to be more on the students and then some of the startups also on like the SBIR funding and getting support on there. So my intent on those is to make those very, very valuable to them, viewing them as being the customer. How are we showing them what value we can provide? Because what I want is I want them to come back and say, hey, we want more. Next year, I want to scale that out to where we can bring in Maelstrom, which is up in Montana. We can bring in F.E. Warren. We can bring in maybe the engineers out of Crane instead of just the T2. Maybe get Crane to pull in some of the other Navy surface warfare centers, and just continue to build out on that. So basically what I'm looking to do is use this as an example so we can get folks to go, hey, there's this really cool event in the Black Hills where I can get access to tech, talent, research that normally we don't see. And oh, by the way, every time we go out there, we're walking away with people that are solving the problems that we're having right now. So that's kind of the vision. So my ask of everybody is I'm looking to try to get the word out there and getting the support on that, because that reverse pitch then is going to lead into 6 months later, those people coming back and you having the opportunity to pitch your solutions. So all of our student teams will have the opportunity to pitch the solutions and have the opportunity of potential transition vehicles. And what I mean by that is, in general, it'd be some sort of a government contract of how do we move forward, depending on what they want to do. So if somebody wants to continue and try to pursue a startup, how do we have them set up so that if the Grand Forks Mission Support Group commander says, yes, that's awesome, I want more of it, we're going to be set up to be able to help those people move forward and continue the progress. So again, trying to take very, very deliberate actions of taking problems, solutions, implementation, and the people that want to pursue startups, helping them to be successful. And the only reason why I just have DoD pitch event is because that's about 9 months out right now, and I haven't put all the pieces together on that. So I do have confirmation as far as the attendees for the pitch, and then a location as far as the pitch. And then right now what I'm doing is I'm working at trying to figure out how to make sure that by having all those people in the room, we have actionable outcomes. So when we come to that, I want to make sure that this is what you're going to get. And I also want them to know that as they walk out of that, they can expect that they're going to have a handful of people that are ready to engage with them. So they want to come back. So that's kind of NSIN in a nutshell and everything. I apologize that if I start throwing my hands away, I'm going to hit the mic and stuff like that. This is my excited look. I don't have like this huge like animated voice or whatever. I can tell you that I know a lot. I think most everybody in here, is from the school and teaches out there, and it is just the most amazing thing to have a student team come up and go, Mr. Combs, you're not going to believe what we just did. We just solved this. No, you don't understand how difficult it was. And seriously, there's this super shy student, and she just couldn't keep her mouth shut. She was just so excited because they actually had this breakthrough. And I'm seeing that time and time again as they go through. And the cool thing about it is all of them on their breakthroughs, it isn't just their success. It's the fact that their success is actually answering the problem that the base has. So they're able to not only own the success, but they're sharing it with the people in uniform they're working with. And it's just so cool to see that, because you go through, you churn, it's really hard and stuff, and then you have kind of these breakthroughs. I put this up here. I know it may not be that visible or whatever because it's dark, but that's the GUS, that's the trash can solution. It looks like a simple solution. I mean, it literally takes about, I think, 3 minutes to put it together. And a student team built this. I think this was probably 8th or 9th iteration of it. It's different enough that it actually is patentable, which I don't know why that is. I don't know all the details or whatever, because I know that they went in and they said there's 4 other solutions to your problem out there, and none of them actually were accomplishing what the base needed. 8th Air Force Commander, one of the things that he liked about this, you guys may, if you've been here for a while, General Mark Weatherington, he was a wing commander out here a long time ago. He's 8th Air Force Commander. He's been put in for his 3rd star and is likely going to be the vice commander for Global Strike Commander. And the reason why I say that is because the bases I was talking about that we want to bring here in the Black Hills, most of those will fall underneath his responsibility. He also was the base commander that put in place the additive manufacturing shop out at the base. And that shop and Brian's team helped produce that because the student team didn't have the capability and didn't have the software or some of the different skill sets they needed to. So again, a lot of different moving pieces, but the only way that happens is actually folks working as a team. And again, it took forever for me to get somebody to take a trash can problem. Nobody wanted a trash can problem, and now everybody wants to be part of the trash can. And it's that diamond in the rough. So this will probably be something I use all the time because it's such a great thing. I would have brought the piece, but unfortunately it takes a non-engineer more than 3 minutes to put it together. So I'm still working on that. But so I'll stop there. I think that's actually the last slide that I've got on here. And what I'd be curious on is if there's any questions that folks have maybe on Zoom land, Angela? Not yet? Okay. Anybody say their background or? Okay, cool. I'll open up for any questions that folks have. Like I said, I can talk all day about this. I love it. I may not sound like or look like I'm passionate, but it's so cool to see what we've done in this community in such a short period of time. And during COVID, I showed up and I didn't meet anybody face to face, and we were able to do this. That's a lot of buy-in from this local community. And these actions, the part I didn't talk about is the engagement with Elevate and Ascent. That is also part of that because the anchoring with the school. So, John, I'm going to pick on you if nobody else because I get to be like the teacher right now. Yes, sir.
Why the South Dakota School of Mines in the midst of all of these heavy hitters? Now, my skeptical self says, well, somebody's got some connections. They paid off a previous political favor. Something happened here. Are you implying that Silicon Valley Junior has come to the Black Hills because of our resources, our abilities?
So the first part, as far as why the School of Mines, so the reason why is we have a regional director that's out of Colorado Springs, so kind of the Denver area. I know Colorado Springs is still quite a ways away, but that segment, and their responsibility was to take a look at the Rocky Mountain region, which is Utah, Montana, Wyoming, South Dakota, Colorado, and I might be missing one. And Utah up in Salt Lake and Colorado very clear as far as places. But you start looking at the other places and they're trying to figure out where am I going to get strong engineering and where am I going to get problem solving. And so they started looking and they asked me, at this time I was the chief of staff, I think. And I said, hey, you should take a look at the Black Hills. They've done some amazing stuff with the base through Sedita. Again, I was stationed out here before when we were working on airspace and range expansion. So I was familiar, and I'm like, you may want to look into the engagement that actually the local community has with the base and see the tie-ins with the school and everything, because they actually have huge impact and have had a huge outcomes and results with the base. And so they came out and they took a look at the local area. I think Scott Langeth met with them. I know that Joseph, I think, did, and I think Darren did. I think they actually went down to Boulder, Darren and Joseph, to watch one of the ENSIGN events. And so it was through that engagement that they're like, hey, this is where we want to go ahead and we're going to try this out. So I will tell you that I'm on an experiment. So the agreement between the school and between ENSIGN is a two-year of like, hey, are we going to get our money's worth on partnering, like you said, with a small school? And the answer I'll tell you right now is yes. I mean, the stuff that we're doing is way, way outsized compared to the size. So that's the reason why they took a look at it. And then what was what was the other question? Sorry.
Well, it was basically one question is how did we even show up on
Yeah.
the radar when you've got Colorado School of Mines that's close, and usually, you know, if we go for scraps,
Yeah.
they're going to just push us aside and say, I'll have it.
Well, so I guess the other one that I would throw out is back to the engagement. So Joseph was very active with the regional director at the time. It's the regional director has changed, but her name was Rachel at the time, on engaging with her. And when he went down and he was interested and saw what was pitched, I think it was at Boulder at the time, the Innovating for National Security. They call it Hacking for Defense or something different down there. He was just really impressed with that. So it was the continued engagement. I think that's the difference of this school, this community. Everything that I talked about the engagement, I haven't seen that anywhere else as far as going through. I mean, there's been a lot of hard work and everything, and Ensign is results oriented, and that's what we're doing here. And so that, I think that's the answer is, you know, there are a lot of other schools out there, and there's schools, and every single one of them, there's like a 2-year agreement of like, hey, let's see how this is going to work. And some of the schools don't continue on because, you know, there isn't a whole lot of collaborative work or whatever, and others continue on. And like I said, I think we're on pace for that. So.
Well, that's impressive, you know, as a student and employee of School of Mines.
Yeah.
There's always a little bit of inferiority complex when you're talking about some big schools.
Yeah.
And it's encouraging and gratifying to think that, hey, we can play with the big boys.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll tell you just on the results here, and there's many of them that are in progress right now. The results, I think, tell the story themselves. Again, I think the research side, very well established. Our students are capable of doing the exact same thing. I think it's just building those opportunities to actually demonstrate it. It's been fun watching the fellowship teams because we've got, like I said, students from all over the U.S. And I mean, if I were blindfolded, I wouldn't be able to tell the difference, you know, as far as whether they're from Berkeley, whether they're from the School of Mines or whatever. I mean, our students are rock solid, and I've already had 2 people tell me they want to hire the students right now. So they don't have the authority to do it, but they want to hire them. So I thought you ran off, John. I really did. I saw that the table was getting pretty sparse. I don't know if they ran away because they were worried I was going to ask them questions or. Yes, sir.
You know, we see a lot of airmen that are looking at getting a degree, or officers looking for a graduate degree. Is there an opportunity for them to participate in this as well?
Yeah, so the question is an opportunity for airmen to participate in the ENSIGN programs, and I think specifically through the school. And so the answer to that, I think the easiest way would be if they're a student at the school, then obviously it's up to your discretion as far as who goes into whatever course. ENSIGN, it doesn't matter whether or not they're an actual in uniform. We do have universities where that's what they do. They have some people that are currently serving. We have other cases where they're in ROTC programs. We're just looking to tap into the different talent that's there. So whether it's the senior design courses seem to be some of the better ones that are like core university courses. And then the Innovating for National Security, since that one seems to be a really good one that combines STEM and business and stuff like that. So those are 2 really good ways to do that. Yes, sir.
So how do you see this transitioning to the B-21 coming?
How do I see what?
Your program kind of transitioning to the B-21 coming and being on the base?
Yeah, so the cool thing with the ENSIGN program, going back to kind of one of the core things, is it's focused on DoD problems. So I guarantee it doesn't matter what shows up at the base, they're always going to have problems that they're trying to solve. And so there is not going to be a shortage of problems. And the nice thing about the ENSIGN programs and kind of what we've seen is it doesn't matter whether or not it's a really simple problem like a trash can, or whether it's a really complex problem like PFAS remediation. All of those fall within the scope of problems that we can go ahead and tackle. My focus in general has been predominantly on the base and the School of Mines because I know that was something locally that we valued as far as improving that collaboration. That'll be the same for this next year, but I'm using that also as that building block to be able to get more examples of success to build out into some of the lab stuff that can get to what I would consider kind of more complex problems. So I don't see it as being the B-21 presents a lot of opportunities, but as far as what ENSIGN does, it wouldn't matter if there was a B-21 coming out or if there wasn't. In any case, there's always going to be problems that are out there that we need to solve. And the biggest one is just going to be making sure that we identify those and figure out the right problems for the right problem solving. So I do think that as far as a community though, I think on that dual use and that venture side, I think that there's a lot of opportunities for potentially trying to take the talent pool we have and specifically looking at the students and trying to accelerate them towards considering themselves as CEOs of tech startups. Because I do think that there are going to be opportunities out there that we may not envision. That again, if it ends up solving a DoD problem, that's perfect. That's what ENSIGN does. The business development, we're not interested in business development. We're interested in the problem that it solves. So when I talk dual use venture, it's about trying to get that problem solved out there. So I do think that the B-21 will probably bring opportunities that I think we can set up our students for success if they want to, pursue a tech startup and kind of do, the Rob Raby model or the, Frank and nano coatings and stuff like that. So. Yes, ma'am.
The reverse pitch day, is that just an additional avenue for problem-solving partnership with the school, in addition to the innovation, the fellowship, and the senior designs?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
So the reverse pitch day, that's just another avenue for partnership with students on campus?
It is. So the question is the reverse pitch day, is it just another chance for partnership with students on campus? The answer is yes and. So my primary focus is for more students to have a chance to engage with the people out at the base and actually the leadership on the base also that has the authority to say, my people are going to do this, they're going to focus their time on that. Because sometimes if you've got the younger folks that are interested, but they've got to be prioritized somewhere else, I want to make sure both of those are together. So that's the first part is, what I would love is I would love if somebody like you were to come in there and go, wow, this is a problem that I want to learn more about, and run with it. The secondary part is there's also opportunities that could be in like the PFAS research. There could be a student who wants to go and take that knowledge and start trying to pursue maybe a solution that the base is interested in. I would consider that more of kind of a startup avenue, and I think that's slightly different than having students who want to work on a real world problem. That's the starting point, but then I also want the student that wants to be the CEO and wants to continue on these things and actually scale out whatever their product is. And then the third one is the tech transfer office, which isn't really student oriented. It could be, but I see that much more of like the companies that I would say that are off of Deadwood Avenue, kind of where B9 and MEMSense are, and then down off of 16, where RPM and Respect and HS Precision. And if there's researchers out there. Now I'm focusing on the IP transfer, the tech transfer, and I have talked to Joseph to make sure that we don't have any like competition or whatever. It's very different as far as the focus is on the school and in the lab. But I'm looking at that as the first interaction to get that relationship with Crane. Because again, what I want to see eventually is, so when Crane is calling up, it isn't Crane, it's I'm talking to Annie, and Annie wants to talk to Tim Houghton at HS, or wants to talk to Sean Anderson at B9. That's the kind of interaction that I'm looking to build, and I think we can get there, but I just need help on getting those folks there. So how can ENSIGN and how can I help you guys better? What are the opportunities that we're missing? And I didn't realize Kirsty was back there, but if you guys want to know about an ENSIGN program and know of, kind of have a different perspective, Kirsty was actually, she was the first class we had for innovating for national security. So I would strongly encourage, talk to her. I will also share with folks like who the fellows were, so that when you're seeing the fellows, talk to them. That's a different program that we have, but those are the two programs that we've run with students out of the school so far, and ask them about their experiences, and then please share that with me, because if I don't know what you're seeing and what we can do better, or what opportunities we're missing, I can't build out the connections. I will tell you that it's kind of a slow process, and I do have kind of a method as far as kind of a building block. But I need the different suggestions and ideas, because I'm definitely not the smartest person out there. I'm all about the collaboration and going, hey, does this look right? Hey, John, what do you think about this? Hey, Joseph, what do you think about this? Hey, Darren, what do you think about this? And doing that together is where we get these successes. So that would be my last thing, I guess I would ask everybody, is please help me with that. We've got the evidence that this works. The feedback from folks, I think, has been, almost 100% positive on both the customer side, which would be the DoD, as well as the partners, which would be like HS Precision and be our students. So let's continue to build upon those and can build upon those successes. So if there aren't any other questions, my contact information, the easiest way is just, yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah, so the question was, how am I bringing the problems to the students, whether it's through senior design or whether it's through like innovating for national security. So currently, two things. One, bringing the problems. I'm looking to make people aware, and what I'm doing is I'm actually doing a lot of work with the bases to help them come up with what I'll call a framed problem, which you can look at and kind of understand and go, okay, yeah, I get it. I know what they're looking to do, and figure out if that's a good opportunity for you and what you want to do. So that's thing one. That's actually getting a problem out there, versus like a descriptor, which is most of the problems that I see that are written up. I don't understand what the problem is, because somebody's really using a lot of adjectives versus getting down into what the problem is and kind of what they're trying to, what the outcomes should look like. The second part is the programs. It's how we interact with people here locally. I currently am focusing on what we have established. I also have a guidance to go out and create new opportunities or new ways to engage with universities. So I know that I worked with Dan looking at some opportunities for that, and looking at how can we do things locally that can get that engagement better. So again, if you have ideas out there of how we can do that, that's something else that I've been charged with, trying to do that. Because if we come up with something that's great, the idea is we're going to take it from the School of Mines in Rapid City and Ellsworth, and then we're going to put it at the Ohio State, we're going to put it at Berkeley, we're going to make it into a formal program. And actually what we call capstone, we call it, I think we just call it capstone now, is senior design. That's exactly what happened. It came out of UVA. We had a UVA guy that's like, why are we not taking our projects and putting them in a project-based program that already is established? So I'm missing a lot of things, and I would look for any opportunities. And if you're looking at it from a grad standpoint, or if you're looking at it as a startup standpoint, doesn't matter to me. Let's look on how to build these things out to help all of us be more successful. So cool. Well, again, I really appreciate the time. I wish I could see the people that are online. And again, I wish I did more backflips. Just not my style or there. But my information, though, the easiest way to find me is just to Google NSIN, NSIN, and then you can go over and you can see like the regions and stuff like that. And you can just go to South Dakota and you'll find my picture and my email address. Or if you go to the school directory, I've got a school email address. I will tell you that I don't check that email very often when the academic year is off, so I apologize. So the ensign, or if you can't remember that, John, Joseph, or Jeff Wolstad, any of those three can get a hold of me anytime. So, well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Just wanted to say thanks for coming again. We do this every third Tuesday. So next month is, I believe it's August. I don't remember the date. Third Tuesday in August. It's going to be Dr. Kayla Pritchard from our Humanities and Social Sciences Department. She's going to do a presentation on the history of the brothels in Deadwood. So that should be pretty interesting. So again, thank you for coming. See you next month, hopefully.